Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. You know, there's this subtle ache many of us carry, a quiet wondering about whether that person, the one who lingers in our mind late at night, feels what we feel. Sometimes we sense that their heart is ours, but the signs are hidden beneath layers of hesitation, fear, or old scars that they haven't yet healed. Have you ever sat across from someone who says the right things but whose gaze lingers just a moment too long? Whose hand brushes yours and trembles ever so slightly, as if holding back a flood of feeling? Who shows up for you but never quite says what you suspect they want to say? That's what we're going to explore today. Because love doesn't always arrive with confidence or clarity. Sometimes it comes dressed in fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability. And yet there are unmistakable signs that their heart already belongs to you, even if they are too afraid to admit it. In today's conversation, we're going to unravel these signs gently, like untangling a delicate necklace, so that you can recognize when someone's love is quietly revealing itself and learn how to meet them there with grace, curiosity, and care. I'm so glad you're here because what we're talking about today is something many of us have felt but rarely speak about openly. Those quiet, almost imperceptible signals that someone loves us deeply but holds back from showing it. It's a kind of emotional holding pattern where affection is alive and present, but it doesn't fully emerge yet. And for anyone over 30, this is especially relevant because we've all experienced relationships where history, heartbreak, or fear has taught us to protect our hearts, to wait before revealing too much. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever felt a connection so strong it almost hums between you and someone else? But when you look at their actions, you're left wondering, do they really feel this too? That's exactly what we'll explore together today. We'll look at the subtle, almost poetic ways that love makes itself known even when the other person is afraid to say it out loud. And this is important, especially for you, a man navigating dating, relationships, maybe even the scars of past betrayals, because recognizing these signs gives you clarity. It helps you decide whether to wait, lean in, or simply recognize that love is there even if it's tentative. Let's ease into this beautiful and tender terrain. Imagine you're sitting across from them, maybe at a dinner table, maybe on a quiet park bench. Their smile lingers a little longer than usual, but they're careful not to hold your gaze for too long. The first sign their heart might already be yours is the way their body speaks when their words do not. Their eyes search yours, even while they look away quickly. Their posture leans toward you, though they seem cautious not to get too close. There's this paradox of desire and distance that plays out in their gestures, and if you watch closely, you can feel the tension, the warmth that wants to move forward but holds itself back. This is what I call the pull and retreat, a kind of emotional choreography where they come close and then step back, as if testing whether it's safe to show you their heart. It's an almost childlike pattern that speaks volumes. Someone whose heart is yours but who is afraid will often do this dance, showing up with warmth and then withdrawing slightly, not because they don't care, but because they care too much and they're terrified of the consequences of revealing it fully. But there's another layer here too, and this is the second sign. They remember the smallest details about you. Even when they seem guarded or emotionally contained, their mind is attuned to you. You'll notice that they remember what you said casually weeks ago, the book you wanted to read, the place you wanted to visit, the way you take your coffee. This isn't random, memory is intimate. When someone remembers small things about you that even you have forgotten you shared, it's because they're paying attention in a way that goes beyond politeness or friendliness. Their mind is holding space for you even when they're not ready to let their emotions rush forward. This attentiveness, this quiet holding of your stories, is one of the most beautiful signs that their heart is leaning toward you, even if fear holds them back from telling you directly. Sometimes these people won't compliment you in overt ways. They won't declare their feelings grandly. Instead, they'll express affection through subtle acts of remembrance, showing you that you matter, even when their words don't say it outright. And then comes the third sign. They find reasons to be near you, but they disguise it as coincidence. Maybe they don't text "I miss you," but they text about something random just to start a conversation. Maybe they show up at events where they know you'll be. Maybe they ask you for help with something they probably don't really need help with, all so they can feel your presence. This is where we must be sensitive. They are testing proximity. They want to be close, they crave the warmth of your presence, but they're careful to frame it in ways that protect them from appearing too eager or vulnerable. And if you look closely, you'll notice that this pattern repeats itself. Their reasons for being around you may seem innocuous or even accidental, but beneath it is a deeper truth. They feel safe near you, they long for your energy, but they're afraid to state their need directly. This delicate dance can feel frustrating if you're not attuned to what's happening beneath the surface. You may find yourself wondering why they don't just say what they feel, but in many cases the hesitation isn't about you. It's about them, their past wounds, their fears of rejection, their struggle to trust that intimacy can be safe. So if you find yourself in this kind of connection, where their gaze lingers but quickly looks away, where their memory of you is rich even though their words are sparse, where their presence in your life feels frequent but quietly orchestrated, know that you are already touching their heart, even if they can't say it out loud. And this is where we as men have an opportunity to show up with strength, patience, and emotional intelligence. Because when someone's heart is opening tentatively, it doesn't help to push or demand clarity too soon. Instead, this is a moment to observe, to hold space, to allow their vulnerability to emerge on its own timeline. There's a kind of beauty in letting love reveal itself slowly, in recognizing the subtle signs without rushing to define them. In allowing their fear and their affection to coexist without judgment, we've begun to explore some of these signs gently. The pull and retreat of body language, the attentive memory of your smallest details, the careful orchestration of proximity disguised as chance. Now let's continue, because there are deeper signs still, signs that show up not just in behavior, but in emotional patterns that speak to something profound. You see, when their heart is already yours, but they are afraid to show it, they often exhibit a kind of emotional vulnerability that isn't obvious at first glance. It's subtle, even disguised, but if you're attentive, you'll feel it. This vulnerability often surfaces in what I would call their openness to your emotional world, and that's the fourth sign. They become curious about your moods, your thoughts, your reflections, even when they avoid exposing too much of their own. It's a paradoxical behavior. They want to know what you think, how you feel, what's happening inside you, but they hold back from offering the same transparency. They'll ask how you're really doing, but when you gently ask them the same, they hesitate, deflect, or respond with something light-hearted, almost dismissive. This asymmetry reveals that they are deeply invested, because curiosity is an intimate act. When someone is interested in your interior life, in the nuances of your experience, it's because they are already connected to you on a level that goes beyond casual affection. Their reluctance to reciprocate isn't necessarily a sign of disinterest, on the contrary. It's a sign that they care deeply and are afraid to reveal the depth of their own feelings. Their fear protects their vulnerability, even as their curiosity reveals their attachment. Sometimes this takes the form of them quietly supporting you in moments when you feel low. Maybe it's a thoughtful message checking in after a difficult day, or a gesture of kindness that seems small but is deeply attuned to your emotional state. They are attentive to your fluctuations, attuned to your silences. And yet they won't talk about their own struggles unless you create a space safe enough for them to let that guard down. Now, closely linked to this emotional curiosity is the fifth sign, their conflict between independence and connection. This is often where things get tricky. When someone loves you but is afraid to show it, they often oscillate between craving closeness and fiercely protecting their independence. You may notice that they withdraw just when things seem to get more emotionally intense or intimate. For instance, after a beautiful evening together, full of laughter, connection, maybe even deep conversation, they may suddenly go quiet for a few days. They may tell you they're busy or need space, but beneath that explanation is an internal struggle. They are afraid of losing themselves in the depth of their feelings. Their fear doesn't mean their affection is less. In fact, it may mean their feelings are so powerful they feel overwhelmed by them. And this is so important for you to understand because as men over 30, we've seen how many times people carry emotional scars from previous relationships, attachments, and heartbreaks. That fear of losing autonomy can run deep. When they step back or assert their independence just when connection is blooming, it's not rejection. It's their heart saying, "This is more than I expected, and I'm afraid, so what do you do in this space?" You don't chase, you hold steady, you honor their need for autonomy while remaining present and consistent. Because love that is patient, love that allows someone to retreat and still feel safe returning, is often the love that heals these old wounds. And if you observe them carefully, you'll see that even in their withdrawal, they are still connected. They may go silent, but they're watching. They may not initiate conversation, but they quickly respond when you reach out. Their absence is not disconnection. It's an attempt to self-regulate, to hold their fear and their love at the same time. There's a tenderness in recognizing this dance and choosing not to interpret it as disinterest. It's about seeing the person behind the behavior, about recognizing the ways their fear and affection coexist. At this point in your journey together, even if nothing has been spoken openly, you're already inhabiting a kind of emotional intimacy that is real, even if unacknowledged. The signs are there, their eyes that linger too long, their attentiveness to your smallest preferences, their reasons for being near you that sound casual but are deeply intentional, their curiosity about your inner life paired with a reluctance to share their own, their simultaneous pull toward you and retreat back into themselves. And you may feel the tension in this space too, a desire to reach out, to ask directly what's really going on between you, paired with the wisdom to understand that sometimes what is unspoken carries more weight than what is spoken too soon. So now we move a little deeper still, because while these signs tell us that their heart is yours, there are still more ways this quiet affection reveals itself. When someone's feelings are strong but hidden, they often create small rituals around you, patterns that might seem incidental but are actually ways of maintaining connection. Maybe they check in at the same time every evening with a casual text. Maybe they always bring you something when they visit, your favorite drink or a snack they know you love. Maybe they share songs, memes, articles, tiny offerings that say, "I'm thinking of you," without saying it aloud. This is the sixth sign, the creation of micro rituals that anchor their affection even when their fear prevents grand declarations. These rituals are small threads that bind your daily life, threads they weave deliberately so that even if their words fail them, their actions keep them close. The power of these rituals is that they offer continuity. Even if the relationship hasn't been defined yet, these little gestures create a rhythm between you. They give shape to a bond that hasn't yet been formally named, and here's what's key, they may not even realize they're doing it. These rituals arise naturally when someone's heart is engaged. They come from that place inside that yearns for emotional connection but fears exposure. When you notice these small patterns, the text before bed, the thoughtful gesture, the small but consistent offerings, pay attention. These are expressions of attachment, a language all their own, And finally, there is one more sign that often goes unnoticed but speaks volumes. When their heart is yours but they are afraid, they sometimes reveal their feelings through moments of jealousy or protectiveness. Not in dramatic or toxic ways, but in subtle expressions of concern when you mention others in your life. Their tone may shift slightly, or their questions may become more probing when you speak of someone else you're close to. This is not about possessiveness, it's about vulnerability. The person who quietly loves you, but hasn't yet found the courage to declare it, may feel a sting at the thought of losing you to someone else. This sting reveals care, even if they quickly mask it with humor or casual indifference. You'll notice this especially when you speak about another potential romantic connection. Their reaction will carry a charge, a flicker of something that betrays their deeper emotional investment, even if they quickly recover and change the subject. This protectiveness is often involuntary. It leaks out in tone, in body language, in small interruptions or questions that reveal their deeper feelings. These signs together create a portrait of quiet affection that lives beneath the surface, that struggles to come into the light but is no less real for being hidden. And now that we've explored these additional layers, we can begin to see the full emotional landscape they occupy. Their body language, their attentive memory, their careful proximity, their curiosity about your inner world, their oscillation between closeness and distance, their rituals of connection, and their subtle protectiveness. When you begin to see these small signals clearly, the way they craft rituals around your presence, the tender protectiveness that slips through their guardedness, their curiosity about your emotional world even as they conceal their own, you begin to realize something else about the way love expresses itself when it's afraid. It doesn't rush, it lingers. This kind of affection isn't loud or overt. It's quiet and consistent, patient even in its hesitance. And that brings us to perhaps the most profound dynamic of all. When their heart is yours but they fear to show it, they will often reveal themselves most deeply during times of vulnerability, not their own vulnerability but yours. You'll notice that in your difficult moments, when you're feeling uncertain, sad, or fragile, they are present in ways they aren't when everything is light and easy. Their support emerges as quiet consistency, the check-in messages that arrive just when you need them, the offer to help when you didn't ask, the comforting silence that allows you to speak freely. This is where love's complexity unfolds itself most beautifully. Because while they may struggle to voice their feelings when everything is fine, when you are vulnerable, they cannot help but show up. Their empathy leads them, even when their fear holds them back from declarations. They might not know how to express, "I love you," but they show you that they care through the way they witness your pain without flinching or retreating. And that is no small thing. Because real intimacy isn't forged in the easy moments, it's forged in the difficult ones. When someone who fears closeness still chooses to stand beside you when you're at your lowest, you are witnessing an act of profound emotional investment. It's almost as if their fear dissolves in the presence of your vulnerability. They become more comfortable when they can offer you support than when they have to declare their own feelings. Why? Because being there for you allows them to express love without exposing their own inner world. It lets them care for you from a place of strength rather than emotional nakedness. You might experience this as paradoxical at first. Why is it that when I'm struggling, they show up fully, but when I'm happy and everything seems fine, they retreat or hesitate? It's because the roles feel safer when they're the one giving. Supporting you allows them to love you without risking rejection. But when everything is easy and the space would naturally invite emotional reciprocity, that's when their fear pulls them back. This is an important place for you to stand as a man who is both strong and emotionally intelligent, to recognize that their love language might not look like what you expect. It doesn't always come in romantic confessions or grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in the way they're willing to sit with you in your darkness, even when they can't yet say what you long to hear. And that brings us deeper into a very subtle but revealing space, their small sacrifices. This is one of the purest signs that their heart is yours, even if they're afraid to show it openly. They begin to prioritize you in quiet ways, rescheduling their day to accommodate yours, adjusting plans without complaint, showing flexibility even when they pretend it's no big deal. They don't announce these sacrifices, they don't draw attention to them, but if you pay attention, you'll notice. They are making room for you in their life, often without being asked. This is love moving quietly beneath the surface. These sacrifices are easy to overlook because they don't demand recognition. And that's precisely what makes them so significant. When someone's heart is yours, but they're afraid to say it, their love emerges not in declarations, but in adjustments. It shows up in the way they create space for you in their world, without asking you to notice, because to them it feels natural to do so, even if it scares them at the same time. There's something incredibly beautiful about this, and also delicate, because if you rush to confront them or demand clarity, you may interrupt this gentle process. Sometimes love that is cautious needs time to bloom fully. It needs an atmosphere of trust, patience, and acceptance. At this point in your relationship, whether you're dating, friends moving towards something more, or simply circling around the edges of romance, you've probably begun to feel this, the love that is present but not yet declared, and this leads to a deeper emotional truth. Fear is not the opposite of love. In many cases, fear coexists with love precisely because the feelings are strong. People fear what they care about losing. They hesitate when something matters deeply. Indifference does not cause hesitation, care does. So when you sense hesitation, mixed signals, small retreats, understand that this often reflects their depth of feeling, not its absence. This understanding allows you to hold the relationship differently, with more grace, more compassion, and perhaps most importantly, more patience. It allows you to recognize that their love language may simply be less verbal and more behavioral. They may not be ready to confess, "My heart is already yours," but their actions are quietly whispering it every day. When you notice these behaviors, their careful but consistent presence during your vulnerable moments, their quiet sacrifices that go unmentioned, their attention to your comfort and preferences, their protectiveness that appears even when they try to hide it, you begin to see that their heart is already invested. And this knowledge can change how you show up too. Rather than pushing for clarity or rushing them toward a confession, you can relax into the connection itself, appreciating the subtle ways they are already revealing their affection. You can create a space where they feel increasingly safe to come forward, where their fear diminishes slowly over time as they discover that your presence is steady and your acceptance is unconditional. In this way, you become not just a recipient of their quiet love, but a steward of it, holding the space gently while they navigate their hesitation and longing. This is a powerful place to stand, because it allows love to emerge naturally, without force, without demands, and without premature expectations. And so we arrive here, in this tender space where affection has made itself known even in its quietest expressions, where their actions have spoken even when their words have not. You see, when love is hidden beneath fear, it's easy to misunderstand the hesitations, the pauses, the silences as disinterest, but when you slow down, when you really feel into the dynamic between you begin to recognize that hesitation itself is a language of care. It reveals that something real is happening beneath the surface, that their heart is wrestling with emotions too big for them to handle all at once. And here's what's so interesting. Even as they fear exposure, they are also quietly seeking emotional safety with you. That's another unmistakable sign. When someone's heart is yours but they're afraid to show it, they begin to test emotional safety in small but telling ways. Maybe they reveal just a fragment of their inner world, a brief comment about something painful from their past, a rare admission of self-doubt, a fleeting glimpse into their insecurities, and then quickly retreat, as if checking to see how you'll respond. If you meet these moments with gentleness and without judgment, you'll notice that their disclosures slowly deepen over time. This is the emotional equivalent of knocking gently at a door to see if it opens. These tiny disclosures are not random. They are intentional steps toward intimacy, invitations to see how safe you are, to determine whether they can allow their feelings for you to be fully expressed. And this is where your role becomes vital, to recognize that this testing of emotional safety is not manipulation, it's not a game, it's their cautious way of opening up after carrying past wounds that taught them love is risky, unpredictable, or painful. How you respond in these moments matters deeply. When you show up with warmth, patience, and steadiness, you communicate without words that their feelings, even the hidden ones, are safe with you. And this creates a powerful feedback loop. Your calm presence lowers their fear, and as their fear lowers, their affection becomes more visible, more embodied, more freely expressed. You may begin to notice that they reach out more often, not always directly to confess their feelings, but to seek connection in quieter ways. This is where love starts to shift from a hidden affection to something that lives in the space between you, something you can feel even if it's not fully articulated. But there's another beautiful dimension here too. When someone's heart is yours but they fear showing it, they will sometimes express their affection not just to you, but indirectly through your friends, your family, the people you care about. They may go out of their way to ask about your mother's health, your child's school, your best friend's work situation, even when they keep their own emotions hidden from you. This interest in the people you love is a profound expression of attachment. It says, "I may not know how to tell you how much I care, but I care about the world you care about." This is subtle but significant. It's an act of emotional inclusion, a way of weaving themselves into the fabric of your life without making grand statements or overt declarations. And this is where love reveals itself most elegantly, in these gestures of care that extend beyond you and embrace your world. When you notice this pattern, their kindness to the people who matter to you, their genuine interest in your broader life, you are seeing a heart that is quietly offering itself, afraid to say, "I'm yours," outright, but expressing it through the tenderness with which they treat what you love. And if you observe carefully, you will also notice something else. Even when they hold back their words, their energy reveals them. You can feel it in the way they linger near you, in the softness of their voice when they speak your name, in the way their mood shifts in your presence. Love, even when unspoken, has a gravitational pull. It draws people toward you, even as their mind tells them to hold back. And you feel this pull in the pauses between conversations, in the way they light up when you enter a room, in the way they seem most relaxed when they're near you, even if they won't admit why. These energetic shifts are not random. They are the body's way of expressing what the heart has not yet given itself permission to say. And so, what do you do when you recognize all of this, when you see the subtle signs, the quiet gestures, the hesitations that speak volumes? You breathe, you slow down, you allow the relationship to unfold at its natural pace. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer someone whose heart is already yours, but who fears showing it, is not pressure for answers, not demands for declarations, but space, loving, attentive space where they can feel that their affection is received even before it is spoken. This space is not passive. It's deeply active. It's about presence, about showing up consistently, about being steady without clinging, about letting them know that you see their affection even in its quietest forms. In this space, trust is built, fear softens, the invisible bond between you strengthens until it becomes visible, until it becomes undeniable. And in this way, you create the conditions where love, once hidden, becomes free. This is not just a skill, it's a mindset. A mindset of emotional maturity, patience, and wisdom, knowing that love that is tentative today can become love that is bold tomorrow, if it is met with grace rather than impatience. This is the art of relationship at its most refined, recognizing what is present even when it is not spoken, holding space for it to emerge naturally, and honoring both the affection and the fear as parts of the same human experience. In doing so, you transform the relationship, and you may even transform yourself. Because to love in this way, to love without needing immediate confirmation, to hold steady in the face of hesitance, to welcome affection in all its subtle forms, is a deeply powerful act of emotional strength. You know, there's a quiet beauty in realizing that sometimes love comes not in declarations, but in gentle persistence. When someone's heart is yours, but they're afraid to show it, it is often not about if they love you, but whether they feel safe enough, ready enough, healed enough to let themselves show you. And here's where something profound begins to happen. The small signs, the gestures, the rituals, the protectiveness, their interest in your interior world and your people, all these little threads begin to weave together into something you can feel. Even before they say a word, you feel loved, and that feeling, when nurtured, begins to speak louder than words ever could. This is what I want you to understand as we arrive gently at this final part of our conversation today. When we truly attune ourselves to someone, when we learn to listen not just to what they say, but to how they show up, to what they do, we enter into a deeper kind of intimacy, one that honors both love and fear at the same time. In that space, we become not the one demanding confessions, but the one offering refuge. We stop needing them to prove their feelings and instead begin to cherish the ways they are already loving us, quietly and imperfectly. And here's something I want to invite you to reflect on deeply. Love that is hesitant, love that is careful, love that is working its way through old wounds and fears is still love. It just speaks a different language. This is why presence matters. Your calm, grounded presence becomes the space in which their hidden affection can safely land and grow. And in this presence, over time, something begins to shift. You may notice that they start leaning into vulnerability more often, that they let themselves linger longer after your conversations, that their text messages lose some of their guarded tone and become a little more open, that their eyes meet yours a little more steadily, that their excuses for being around you are less disguised and more genuine. And slowly, very slowly, their affection will stop hiding. This process is not linear. Some days they will pull back again. Fear will whisper old stories in their ear, stories about being hurt, about being rejected, about not being enough, and they will retreat. But if your presence remains steady, their return will be inevitable. This is what relational maturity looks like, allowing for this ebb and flow without needing to control it. Letting them come towards you at their own pace, without pushing, without manipulating, without testing them back. When you can hold this space with grace, you send a message far more powerful than any words. You can love me at your pace. You can unfold here safely. This is particularly important for men who are navigating love after 30, because by this stage in life, many people have accumulated a history of wounds, of failed relationships, of betrayals or heartbreaks that still haunt them. You may find that the person whose heart is yours, but who fears showing it, has been taught that love is dangerous, that vulnerability leads to pain, that attachment means loss. Your task, if you wish to welcome their affection fully, is not to fix them or convince them, but simply to show them, through your own behavior, that they can trust your steadiness. And here's the beauty. As this trust deepens, something remarkable happens. The fear that once kept them guarded begins to dissolve. The signs that once had to be decoded become more explicit. The hesitation becomes boldness. And without even realizing it, they begin to offer the very clarity you might have craved at the beginning. Because love, real love, thrives not in demand but in invitation, and so I invite you to reflect, is this relationship worth creating that space? Can you honor their pace while remaining grounded in your own sense of worth? Can you recognize their small, hidden signs of affection as the beautiful beginnings of a deeper love story? If so, then you have the opportunity not just to experience romance, but to experience healing with someone whose heart is already yours. This is where we can close this conversation today, not with a list of signs to memorize or a checklist to follow, but with a deeper wisdom. Love that is afraid still loves. Affection that hesitates still longs. Hearts that hide are often hearts that care most deeply. And when you become the kind of partner, friend, or lover who can hold that complexity, the affection and the fear, the nearness and the retreat, the longing and the hesitation, you become someone who isn't just waiting to be loved, but who calls love forth, who allows love to bloom in its own time. So if you've been wondering whether that person in your life, the one who lingers near you, who remembers your stories, who shows up when you're hurting, who gently tests emotional safety, who notices your world, who expresses protectiveness in small ways, if you're wondering whether their heart is already yours even though they haven't said it yet, I want to tell you gently but clearly. You already know, you already feel it. The question is no longer whether their heart is yours. The question is, can you hold the space for them to catch up to what is already true? That is where your power lies. That is where love begins to thrive. So stay present, stay wise, stay gentle, and stay open. Because when you allow someone the time and space to reveal their feelings safely, without judgment or rush, you're not just waiting passively, you are actively creating a relationship, culture, where love can emerge in its truest, most vulnerable, most beautiful form. This is the art of intimacy, and it's an art worth practicing. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me today, for reflecting with me on this tender topic. If this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to leave your thoughts in the comments below, your experiences, your questions, your own stories of recognizing these signs in your relationships. And of course, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Intimacy Lab, so we can continue these rich, intimate conversations together. Here's to you, to your capacity to love wisely, to your courage to stay present with complexity, and to your openness to receiving the love that may already be quietly surrounding you, even if it hasn't yet spoken aloud.